I like feeling sad and I like feeling happy because it means like there's emotion running through me and I can channel that into art. When I don't feel anything is when life is like really boring. So surrealism is twisting reality to feel something. I make every client write me a story. I take the story, I put a song on repeat, and I just like stay up as long as I need to until like things pop into my head. And sometimes it's just like one word in that story that triggers a thought, and then that becomes kind of a tattoo design, yeah. I was just friends with two of my favorite artists, and I was really depressed doing what I was doing before. And I just walked by Strand Books on Union Square and was like, I feel like drawing, and I picked up a drawing book. 2 weeks later, I had a tattoo machine and my license and a line of people at my studio where I was making music. Just some good guidance and desire to make art. I've been watching tattoos since before Instagram. I was following like Nicky Norberg on Facebook, and he was like my idol. As soon as my mentor just gave me the green light to do more than just like lines and shit like that, yeah, I was kind of off to the races. Prior to being allowed to do it, I was just making designs, and so I had them on deck. The only ritual I have for designing a tattoo is I really need to be alone. Like to spawn an idea. It would be really convenient to be able to just have this tunnel vision with people around, but I need to be alone, you know, just to get the idea to spark. There was a guy who had kind of like a terminally ill disease. He just kind of like was battling this disease and felt like he was losing his childhood and adulthood, and you know, but by some miracle, he's still like hanging on. So on his ribs, I have this kid being held up by like clothespins, and then like an adult with a popcorn head falling, and he's kind of like reaching to grab it. So it kind of represented, for whatever reason that's not his own, he's being held on. He's like being kept alive. Today's tattoo, this is more of like a literal piece of the shit that he likes. He wrote to me a story about how boxing has started to change his life, and I know he's like super into motorcycles. He's Algerian. That shit's fun to me when people throw like a bunch of things at me. This one started with boxing gloves that I put in an array and made them into, they look like they are balloons. I have them hanging a photo of old like cafe racer. From behind the photo, there's like confetti coming down because he likes to party. He brought up the idea of like, what about a Jack in the Box? Now we're gonna do like a Jack in the Box with like one of his kind of idols, like face as the Jack in the Box. Every artist is a machine, and so like I'm an empty car, and your story is my gas, and so my interpretation of your story is gonna be unique. It's not gonna be what maybe a different artist is gonna come up with. It's really my job to come up with a meaningful interpretation of their story. I just try and walk in the client's shoes. Some stories I relate to off the bat, and other stories I relate to less. I put my soul in everything I do, at least I try to, but the percentage of, you know, what I put into each one, it's a little bit different each time. A lot of tattoos that I create come from songs. So I'll hear the song and mixed with the client's story, and they just like mesh, and then something like fucking tornado happens. I really do as much as I can to like not go on fucking Pinterest. Secret tip, like go to the bookstore. Mostly all of my references come from books. You just don't fucking find that shit on the internet. I still like produce music, and I used to DJ when like CDJs and Serato didn't exist, so I was always like hunting records and crates and shit, and so it kind of has this nostalgic feeling where, you know, I go to the bookstore and I'm like hunting images. I think it's important to just like look where other people aren't. There's so much influence from other artists. If I see something that like my good friend tattoos, subconsciously it might inspire me to like make a piece that has similarities to it. I know it sounds crazy, but I don't want to see other people's work. It's gonna sit in my brain somewhere and I'm gonna end up copying it somehow. I was making music for 10 years and a lot of it was sample-based, but towards the end, I just wanted to create things from scratch. I think by default, things will get repeated. There's only so many keys on a keyboard, so shit is gonna get fucking copied. There's something to be said about being inspired by something or just totally ripping it, you know what I mean? So I just would rather not toe the line. My primary influence is Oscar Akermo. He's one of my closest friends and he's been there for me since the beginning. My theory on tattooing is you can have an amazing designer who's not good at tattooing or an amazing tattooer who's not particularly that great at designing, but I think he's both of those things. I think each design is a little different. A lot of times I like to print something out. I really need some tangible shit to work with, you know? So I'll print things out a lot of times and cut them out and piece them together. In this piece that we're gonna do today, there is the possibility that I'll place the Jack in the Box and the photo of the motorcycle in one stencil, and then a second stencil I'll put here, just so it everyone's arm is different. If I'm lining something up, I'd want to line it from center point to center point, but if the design goes up to here, you can see that my arm is, you know, this weird fucking shape. I guess it all depends on the arm and the size of the piece. Once I get that frame of that blueprint of a design that's gonna fit the arm or, you know, whatever, then I can print it out and fuck with it. Every time that I put a design on someone, I always add something more once they arrive, even something small that really makes it even more about them. For needles, my friend just showed me the Black Claw, the Helitite 3s, and they make these fucking sick tubes, disposable tube. They're unreal. They are damn near single needles. 3s and 5s, it depends on the piece, but primarily we can get it all done with a tight 3 and 5 mag. Different mag configurations and just round liners is what I like to use. And as far as ink setup go, I do it with 1 or 2 drop and dilute that with water, and then maybe 40, 50% black or 20% black, and then just straight black. So I just use three cups, yeah. There's a reason I don't do color tattoos. Number one, I'm not skilled enough. I don't know color spectrums and stuff. But also, I just feel that black and gray is timeless. That's why I only have black and gray tattoos. When I'm looking at images, I like images from pre-1960 because they have clothes that have stood the test of time and style that have stood the test of time. This woman, her mother passed away, and her mother, she felt kind of put a lot of pressure on her and was a huge part of her life, but also when she had passed, it kind of opened the door for her to be free. That was represented by a portrait of her mother, which I had these kind of weird arms pulling down barbed wire, and then a horse like jumping out of the barbed wire. It's kind of like in the old movies where it's like, if you heard a horse neigh in the barn, that meant like they were fucking or whatever. You know, if birds like fly off, it's like somebody died or get married or, you know, shit like that. So similar to that. So the mother's hands like pulling the barbed wire and the horse jumping through, and then hanging from that barbed wire fence is like a tiny little home that was like her home and her like family's religious values that were kind of like stuck on that fence that was like holding her back. I did on the back of this dude's leg. It's basically a whole bunch of hands coming down from the back of his calf, like from the pit. And they all kind of like, they all want to help him. They're like reaching down. These hands are reaching down to help, and they have like keys hanging off of it. And then there's his hands on the bottom that are handcuffed, and he's like reaching up for help, but there's a key hanging off of his finger. Everyone wants to help him. He's reaching for help, but like he can help himself. I'm sober for 9 years. That person I was always trying to be when I was on drugs is just who I am already. You know, everyone's like, you're a different person on drugs. You're really just who you are. It's just that social lubricant. If I did do like acid again or mushrooms or whatever it was, like, I don't know what would happen. I'm probably make something crazy, or I just wouldn't be able to make anything at all. Part of doing drugs was just running from emotions, and now I chase emotions to the extent that like I get depressed when I don't feel anything. Something's wrong. Like I need to feel things so that I can create. Doing drugs would probably numb me more than excite me. I want to do bigger pieces. It seems so trendy to get these like tiny little pieces. I have a minimum for a reason, and it's because I prefer not to do these like birthmark type of tattoos. Everyone's got their aesthetic, and I think they're beautiful on a lot of people, but I don't get to really like tell a story. I rarely accept them as projects because my soul isn't in it, and I don't want to do something that my soul's not in. I just have like a lot to learn and a lot of progress to make. I know that my designs are unique, but I think like everything I do can be better. I just need to be better across the board. Once I think I can't get better, then number one, I'm definitely an asshole, and number two, I need to stop tattooing. If I don't think I can get better, or if I don't think I can learn from my peers, then I should just stop. So I think I just across the board can be better.